Her shove came so suddenly that Amara Cole almost dropped her books. They scattered across the hallway floor, pages sliding, pens rolling, her notebook skidding all the way to the wall. Laughter exploded behind her before she could even turn around. Watch where you're going, or is spatial awareness not your thing? Amara froze for half a second, then knelt down quickly, her hands shaking as she gathered her things. She didn't look up. She already knew who it was. She knew the sound of their voices, the same way you know the sound of thunder before rain. "Did you see her face?" another voice said, like she was about to cry. "I would too if I looked that out of place." Her chest tightened, but she said nothing. Silence had become her instinct. Silence was safer. As she stood up, clutching her books to her chest, someone leaned close enough for her to smell expensive cologne. "You don't belong here," the girl whispered, smiling sweetly. "You should have stayed wherever you came from." Amara walked away. She didn't run. She didn't react. She didn't give them the satisfaction. But by the time she reached the lecture hall, her hands were trembling so badly she could barely open the door. The room was already half full. Students sat in clusters, laughing, scrolling on phones, leaning into each other. No one waved her over. No one ever did. She took a seat near the back, shoulders hunched, eyes fixed on her notebook. Whispers followed her in. "Is she in this class too? Isn't this advanced? Guess standards are really dropping." She swallowed hard and focused on breathing. Then the room went quiet. Professor Kang Min-jae walked in without announcement. No dramatic entrance, no commanding presence, just a tall, slim man in a dark blazer, glasses perched low on his nose, expression calm and unreadable. Most students barely glanced at him. Amara did. She didn't know why. Maybe it was the way his eyes moved, not scanning the room, but observing it, or the way he paused for a brief second when his gaze passed over her, not lingering, not judging, just noticing. He began the lecture. His voice was even, controlled, slightly accented, not loud, not soft, just steady. Amara tried to focus, but the tension in her chest wouldn't ease. She could feel eyes on her again. Halfway through the lecture, Professor Kang posed a question. Silence followed. He waited. No one answered. Then, slowly, Amara raised her hand. Her heart hammered as every head turned toward her. She felt exposed, like stepping into a spotlight she never asked for. "Yes," Professor Kang said, looking directly at her. She cleared her throat. "The study suggests that enzyme inhibition varies depending on genetic markers, so the conclusion might not be universally applicable." A beat, then a snort from the front row. "Did she even read the paper?" Another laugh followed. Amara's face burned. She opened her mouth to explain, but the words tangled. Professor Kang didn't raise his voice. He simply said, "She is correct." The laughter stopped. He turned to the class. If you had read beyond page 6, you would have noticed the same limitation. A few students shifted uncomfortably. Amara stared down at her notebook, stunned. For the rest of the lecture, no one spoke to her, but the looks changed, not kinder, sharper. After class, she packed up quickly. She didn't want to be cornered again. She almost made it to the door when someone stuck out a foot. She tripped, barely catching herself on a chair. Oops! The laughter this time was louder. Something cracked inside her. She fled. The bathroom was empty when she locked herself into a stall. The sob came out of her before she could stop it. She pressed her mouth to her mind, breathing hard, tears sliding down her cheeks. "I can't do this," she whispered to herself. "I can't." She stayed there until her legs went numb. When she finally came out, she nearly collided with someone standing near the sinks. She jumped back, startled. "I'm sorry," the man said. It was Professor Kang. Her stomach dropped. I wasn't—" "You don't need to explain," he said gently. She stared at the floor, mortified. "I noticed what happened," he continued. "In the hallway, in class." Her throat tightened. "It's fine." It is not. She laughed weakly. It doesn't matter. It matters, he said, calm but firm. You matter. That was it. The tears came back instantly. She turned away, embarrassed, but he didn't move closer. I won't force you to talk, but I want you to know something. She waited. You are not invisible, and you are not alone here. She wiped her face quickly. Thank you. He nodded once. I will see you next class. That night, Amara lay awake staring at the ceiling of her tiny dorm room. The events replayed in her mind over and over. The shove, the laughter, the way Professor Kang had shut it down with a single sentence. For the first time since arriving on campus, something unfamiliar crept in alongside the fear. Hope. But hope, she would soon learn, made bullies angrier. The next day, the messages started. Anonymous, cruel, relentless. Teacher's pet. Bet she cried to him. Using sympathy to survive. Her phone buzzed nonstop. By the end of the week, the bullying wasn't just following her, it was hunting her. And Professor Kang Min-jae was watching everything. By Monday morning, the campus felt different. Not quieter, sharper. Amara sensed it the moment she stepped out of her dorm. Conversations dipped as she passed. Phones tilted slightly in her direction. People smiled without warmth. Her phone vibrated. She didn't need to look to know what it was. Still, she did. Why is the professor defending her so hard? She must be sleeping with him. Classic sympathy play. Her stomach twisted. She locked her phone and shoved it into her bag, breathing through the sudden wave of nausea. In class, the seats around her were deliberately left empty. She sat anyway. Professor Kang entered, calm as ever, and began to lecture like nothing was wrong. But Amara noticed small things now. The way he paused when whispers grew too loud. The way his eyes flicked toward certain students when laughter broke out. Halfway through, he assigned group work. Amara's heart sank. Group work was where it always got worse. Groups of 4, Professor Kang said evenly. I will assign them. Groans rippled through the room. Names were read out. When he said Amara's name, the 3 students paired with her stiffened. One of them muttered, "You've got to be kidding me." They didn't hide it. They didn't lower their voices. During discussion, they spoke over her. When she tried to contribute, one of them leaned back in his chair and said, "We've got it covered." She nodded, shrinking back. At the end, they submitted the work without adding her name. She noticed too late. When Professor Kang returned the assignments the next class, her paper was blank. No submission, written in red at the top. Her chest tightened. After class, she approached him hesitantly. "Professor, I was in a group." He looked at the paper, then at her. "I know." She blinked. "You do?" "Yes." He picked up his pen and calmly crossed out the note. "I will handle it." Her eyes burned. "Thank you." He nodded. "You should never have to beg for fairness." Word spread fast. By afternoon, the bullies were no longer subtle. She walked past 2 girls outside the library. "Careful," one said loudly. "If you mess with her, her professor might cry for her." They laughed. That evening, Amara skipped dinner. She couldn't face the cafeteria. She sat on her bed, staring at the wall, her scholarship letter folded in her hands like a fragile promise. She thought about her mother's voice on the phone before she left. "You worked too hard to come this far." The thought made her throat ache. The next incident happened 3 days later. It was worse. During a lab session, someone switched labels on samples she was responsible for. When results came back incorrect, fingers pointed instantly. Professor Kang studied the data silently. "This contamination pattern is deliberate," he said finally. A beat. Silence. "It does not occur accidentally." The room shifted. Someone scoffed. "Are you saying she didn't mess up?" Professor Kang met the student's gaze. "I am saying facts matter more than assumptions." The student rolled his eyes. Of course. That was the first time Professor Kang's tone changed. Not louder, colder. You are excused, he said. What? You, he repeated calmly. Leave. The student laughed, waiting for backup that didn't come. When he finally stood and walked out, the room was so quiet Amara could hear her own heartbeat. That night, the online posts exploded. Screenshots, edited photos, fake stories. Someone created a poll. Should she be kicked out? Hundreds voted. Amara curled into herself on her bed, scrolling until her hands went numb. At 2 a.m, she opened her laptop and typed "withdrawal deadline" into the search bar. Her finger hovered over the trackpad. A knock came at her door. She froze. Another knock. "Amara?" a voice called softly. Her breath caught. She opened the door a crack. It was Professor Kang. She stared at him in disbelief. "How?" He said, "Your resident advisor contacted faculty after a complaint was filed. I wanted to make sure you were safe." Her composure shattered. She stepped back and the tears came fast and uncontrollable. "I can't do this anymore," she cried. "They won't stop." He stood just inside the doorway, giving her space. "They are trying to make you disappear," he said. "You must not let them succeed." She shook her head. "I'm tired." "I know," he said quietly. He waited until she met his eyes. "You are not weak for feeling this way," he continued, "but leaving will teach them that cruelty works." She swallowed. "What if I can't fight them?" He considered her carefully. "Then you don't fight. You endure, and you let me handle the rest." She searched his face. "Why are you helping me?" He didn't answer immediately. "Because I have seen this before, and because silence helps bullies more than victims." The next week, Professor Kang made an announcement. There will be a faculty-student academic symposium. Attendance is mandatory. Groans filled the room. And selected students will present. Amara's heart sank when he said her name. After class, she rushed to him. "I can't," she whispered. "They'll destroy me." "They already tried," he said calmly. "This is where it stops." She shook her head. "I'm not like them." He looked at her steadily. "That is precisely why you must stand." Preparation was brutal. She rehearsed alone in empty classrooms. She doubted every word, every slide, every sentence. Meanwhile, the bullying intensified. "You think you're special now? You'll embarrass yourself. We'll be watching." The night before the symposium, she sat on the floor surrounded by notes, shaking. She almost deleted the presentation. Almost. If this story is resonating with you right now, drop a comment. Let people know they're not alone. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the rest. The lights in the auditorium felt hotter than they should have been. Amara stepped forward as her name echoed through the room, her legs stiff, her heartbeat so loud she was sure the microphone would pick it up. Rows of faces blurred together, but she could still make out the front row clearly. They were there, smiling, waiting. She placed her notes on the podium and wrapped her fingers around the edge, grounding herself. For a brief moment, she considered walking back off the stage. No one would physically stop her. But then she remembered the bathroom stall, the late nights, the withdrawal page still bookmarked on her laptop. She lifted her head. "My research," she began, her voice thin but steady, "focuses on enzyme response variability in autoimmune treatments." A whisper rippled through the crowd. She pushed through it. At first, the words came slowly, carefully. But as she moved through her slides, something shifted. She wasn't reciting anymore. She was explaining, defending, owning the work she had buried herself in for months. A student in the front row leaned over and muttered something. Another snickered. Amara heard it. Her hands shook, but she didn't stop. "This data challenges a one-size-fits-all approach," she continued, And ignoring genetic markers doesn't just weaken results, it risks patient outcomes. A pause. Then someone in the middle row nodded. Another leaned forward. By the time she reached her final slide, the room was silent. She exhaled, stepping back from the podium. Applause began hesitantly, then spread, growing louder, fuller, until it filled the auditorium. Amara stood frozen, stunned by the sound. She searched the crowd without meaning to. Professor Kong Min Jae was standing, clapping, not smiling, not triumphant, just calm, certain. Relief flooded her so suddenly her knees nearly buckled. But it wasn't over. Professor Kong stepped toward the stage. "I would like to add something," he said into the microphone. The room settled instantly. He turned, not toward Amara, but toward the audience. "Today, you heard good research, but what you did not hear was the context in which it was created." Amara's stomach tightened. "For weeks," he said, "this student has worked under pressure most of you will never experience." A murmur spread. She has been questioned, undermined, isolated. A few heads shifted uncomfortably. And yet, he went on, she still produced work that stands on its own merit. One of the bullies crossed her arms, her smile gone now. Professor Kong's gaze swept the room. "This institution values excellence," he said evenly, "but excellence without integrity is meaningless." Silence. "I have received multiple reports that are now under formal review." The shift was immediate. Whispers, stiff backs, sudden fear. "This symposium is not a performance," he said. "It is a reminder. Talent does not always arrive loudly, and dignity does not require permission." He turned back to Amara. "Thank you for your courage." The applause returned, louder this time. Amara walked off the stage on unsteady legs. Backstage, she pressed her mouth to her mouth, breathing hard. Her entire body buzzed, like she had just survived something dangerous. Professor Kong joined her moments later. "You did well," he said simply. She shook her head, overwhelmed. "I almost ran." "But you didn't." She looked up at him. "What happens now?" He met her gaze. "Now we wait." The waiting was worse than the bullying. By the next morning, rumors tore through campus like wildfire. "Did you hear what the professor said? Someone's under investigation. I heard screenshots are involved." Amara avoided her phone, but it didn't matter. People stared openly now, some with curiosity, some with resentment, and some with guilt. 2 days later, she was called into the administration office. Her stomach twisted as she sat across from a woman with a tight smile and folded hands. "This is routine," the administrator said. "You're not in trouble." Amara nodded, gripping her bag. They asked questions, specific ones, names, dates, messages. Amara answered quietly, her voice shaking only once. When she left, her hands were numb. That afternoon, someone cornered her outside the science building, one of the girls from the front row. "Are you happy now? You ruined everything." Amara stopped. For the first time, she didn't walk away. "I didn't ruin anything," she said softly. "I just didn't disappear." The girl scoffed. "You think you're special?" "No, I think I deserve to be here." The girl stared at her, then turned and stormed off. Word came the following week. Disciplinary hearings, suspensions pending, scholarships under review. The same students who laughed the loudest were suddenly silent. Amara sat in class as usual, but the seats around her were no longer empty. Someone sat beside her, then another. "Hey," a girl whispered awkwardly, "your presentation was really good." Amara nodded. "Thank you." That night, she called her mother. "I almost quit," she admitted quietly. Her mother was silent for a moment. "But you didn't." "No." "I'm proud of you," her mother said. Amara closed her eyes, letting the words sink in. Weeks passed. The campus didn't transform overnight, but something had shifted. Conversations were cautious. eyes no longer mocked openly. One evening, Amara stayed late in the lab. As she packed up, she noticed Professor Kong standing by the door. "Walking back?" he asked. "Yes." They walked in silence for a moment. "You know," he said finally, "there will always be people who resent your presence." She nodded. "I know. But now," he added, "they know you won't leave quietly." She smiled faintly. As they reached her dorm, she paused. "Thank you for everything." He inclined his head. "You did the hard part." If you're still watching this far, take a second to like the video. It helps stories like this reach people who need them. And subscribe if you want to hear how this truly ends. Amara watched him walk away, shoulders lighter than they had been in months. She didn't know it yet, but the final test was still coming. The email arrived at 6:42 a.m. Amara saw the subject line before she even sat up in bed. Formal review outcome. Attendance required. Her pulse spiked. For a moment, she just stared at the screen, her thumb hovering, afraid that opening it would undo everything she'd fought through. She opened it. A disciplinary hearing had been scheduled. Witnesses would be called, statements reviewed, decisions finalized, and she was expected to be there. By the time she reached campus, the air felt heavy. Conversations stopped when she passed. This wasn't the sharp cruelty she'd grown used to. It was something colder, calculated. Outside the administration building, a group of students stood together, arms crossed, eyes hard. One of them met her gaze and smiled. It wasn't friendly. Inside the hearing room, the walls were bare. A long table, several chairs. Faculty members sat stiffly, papers stacked in front of them. Professor Kang was already there. He nodded once when he saw her. "Sit," he said quietly. The accused students arrived last. They looked confident, too confident. One of them leaned back in her chair and sighed loudly. "Can we get this over with?" The chair of the committee cleared her throat. "We are here to review multiple reports of harassment, misconduct, and academic interference." Amara's stomach tightened. Screens flickered on. Messages appeared. Screenshots. Dates. Her words. Their words. Gasps rippled through the room. "That's taken out of context," one student snapped. "Is it?" the administrator asked calmly. Another screenshot appeared. A poll. Dozens of votes calling for Amara to be expelled. "This was a joke," someone muttered. Professor Kang finally spoke. "Jokes do not require anonymity," he said evenly. Silence. One by one, the confidence drained from their faces. The committee dismissed everyone but Amara and Professor Kang. When the door closed, Amara's knees went weak. "You did well," the administrator said. "You were honest." Amara nodded, throat tight. Outside, voices rose. She stepped into the hallway just as one of the girls rounded on her. "You think you won?" she hissed. "You don't understand how this works." Amara held her gaze. "I understand enough." The girl laughed harshly. "This school protects its own." "So do I," Professor Kang said calmly, stepping beside Amara. The girl faltered. "You should be careful what you say next. These walls record more than you think." She walked away without another word. That afternoon, a post appeared online. Not anonymous. Public. "We were misunderstood. This has gone too far. Careers are being destroyed." The comments were brutal. "Actions have consequences. You don't get to play victim now. Own what you did." Amara read quietly, her emotions tangled. Relief, guilt, exhaustion. 2 days later, the decision came. Suspensions, academic probation, scholarships revoked. No announcement, no spectacle, just consequences. That should have been the end. It wasn't. The backlash came quietly. A lab partner stopped responding to messages. A professor canceled office hours when she arrived. A funding recommendation stalled. Doubt crept back in. One evening, Amara found Professor Kang waiting outside the lab. "They are trying a different tactic now," he said. "What tactic?" "Isolation," he replied. "It is less visible, more damaging." She swallowed. "What do I do?" He studied her. "You keep going." The breaking point came a week later. Amara was called into another meeting. This time, it wasn't disciplinary, it was administrative. A dean smiled politely. "We've noticed the attention surrounding you." Amara stiffened. "We're concerned about how it reflects on the department. Perhaps a quieter path would be better?" "You want me to transfer," Amara said flatly. "We want what's best for everyone." Amara felt the familiar ache rise in her chest. Professor Kang leaned forward. "Explain," he said calmly. The dean hesitated. "This institution values harmony." Professor Kang nodded slowly. "Then perhaps you should stop protecting disruption." The room went still. "Amara's work is exemplary," he continued. "If she leaves, it will not be quietly, and it will not be without explanation." The smile vanished. That night, Amara sat on her dorm bed staring at the ceiling again. She thought about how close she'd come to leaving, about how tired she was. A knock came to the door. It was the girl who'd complimented her weeks earlier. "I just wanted to say," she said awkwardly, "you didn't deserve any of this." Amara nodded. "Thank you." The girl hesitated. "Some of us, we were scared to speak up." "I know," Amara said softly. When the door closed, Amara realized something. She wasn't alone anymore. Final exams came and went. Amara walked into each one steady, focused, unafraid of the whispers that still lingered. When grades were released, Amara stared at the screen in disbelief. Top marks across the board. She found Professor Kang outside his office. "I did it," she said, breathless. "I knew you would," he replied. She hesitated. "Why did you fight so hard for me?" He was quiet for a moment. "Because once," he said slowly, "someone tried to make me disappear too." She looked at him differently then. Not just a professor, a survivor. If this story has kept you with us, like the video, subscribe, and tell us in the comments which part hit you the hardest. Your engagement helps these stories reach people who need them. As Amara walked away, grades secured, dignity intact, she felt something unfamiliar settle in her chest. Peace. But the semester wasn't over yet, and neither was the story. Peace didn't last. Amara sensed it before anything concrete happened. The looks had changed again, not hostile this time, but wary. Conversations didn't stop when she approached. They curved around her instead. She had become something else on campus. Not invisible, not welcomed, observed. The first sign came in the form of an email from the scholarship office. "Additional review required." Her chest tightened as she read it twice. It wasn't an accusation, it wasn't reassurance either, just a request for updated documentation, academic records, and a personal statement explaining her academic journey. She stared at the screen for a long time. It felt familiar, the same quiet pressure, the same attempt to exhaust her into leaving. She forwarded it to Professor Kang without comment. He replied 10 minutes later. "Do not respond yet. Come to my office." When she arrived, he was standing by the window, hands clasped behind his back. "We are testing boundaries," he said after reading the email again, "seeing how much resistance remains." Amara sank into the chair. "I thought it was over." "It rarely ends cleanly, especially when people lose power." She laughed weakly. "I'm tired of being strong." Professor Kang met her gaze. "Then don't be strong. Be consistent. That frightens them more." They spent the afternoon preparing. Documents, evidence, records of academic performance. When Amara left his office, her bag was heavier, but so was her resolve. The next blow came from a place she didn't expect. A classmate she'd once studied with cornered her outside the library. "You know, people are saying you only survived because of him," the girl said carefully. Amara felt the sting. "Who?" "Everyone," she replied quickly. "Not me, just everyone." Amara nodded. Then they weren't listening. The girl frowned. It's not fair. No, Amara agreed. It never was. That night, Amara dreamed of the hallway again, books falling, laughter echoing. She woke up breathless. Final projects were due in 2 weeks. She buried herself in work. Sleep became optional. Food became an afterthought. But her focus was sharp, deliberate. Every line of code, every calculation, every reference checked twice. If they wanted proof, she would give them none to question. One evening, the lab was nearly empty when voices drifted in from the corridor. You think she's untouchable now? She thinks she won. Amara froze. She'll slip eventually. They always do. The words settled deep. The scholarship meeting was scheduled for Friday. Professor Kang wasn't allowed to attend. That part frightened her most. She walked into the office alone, shoulders squared, heart pounding. 3 administrators sat behind the table. One smiled politely, another didn't bother. Thank you for coming. This is a standard review. Amara nodded. I understand. They asked about her background, her grades, her research. Then the tone shifted. Do you feel you've received special attention from faculty? Amara inhaled slowly. I've received fair attention. Some might disagree. Some might be uncomfortable with fairness, she replied calmly. Silence stretched. When it ended, they thanked her and dismissed her without comment. She walked out shaky but upright. Professor Kang was waiting outside. He didn't ask. He just walked beside her until her breathing slowed. 2 days later, the result came. Her scholarship was upheld. No apology, no acknowledgement of the strain, just survival. Campus life continued. Graduation loomed. Amara received an unexpected email from a research institution, an internship, paid, competitive. She read it twice, then covered her mouth with her hand. She ran to Professor Kang's office. I got it, she said breathlessly. He smiled, really smiled, for the first time. They recognized your work, he said, as they should. The day of graduation arrived bright and heavy with meaning. Amara stood among rows of students in identical gowns. She spotted familiar faces, some friendly, some indifferent, some resentful. She didn't flinch. When her name was called, she walked across the stage steady and proud. Applause rose, not thunderous, but genuine. In the crowd, Professor Kang watched quietly. After the ceremony, Amara found him near the edge of the lawn. I don't know how to thank you, she said. You already have, by staying. She hesitated. Will you keep doing this, standing up for students like me? He nodded once. As long as I'm here. They stood in silence for a moment, watching families reunite, laughter spilling across the grass. Amara exhaled slowly. I used to think surviving was enough. Now I want more. Professor Kang looked at her. You deserve more. As she walked away, diploma in hand, she knew something had changed permanently. Not the campus, not the world, herself. If you've stayed with this story until now, please like the video, subscribe, and tell us in the comments what this journey meant to you. Your support helps stories like Amara's reach others who need to hear them. The chapter was closing. One more remained. The campus felt smaller after graduation, quieter. Amara returned a week later to pack the last of her things from the dorm. The halls that once echoed with laughter and cruelty now felt neutral, stripped of power. Posters were coming down. New students would arrive soon, unaware of what had happened within these walls. She moved slowly, folding clothes, stacking books, letting the silence settle. A knock came at the door. She already knew who it was. Professor Kang Min-jae stood in the doorway, holding a slim folder. I thought you might still be here, he said. I leave tomorrow, Amara replied. I wanted to say goodbye. He handed her the folder. This came for you. She opened it carefully. A recommendation letter. Not generic, not polite. It was detailed, fierce, unapologetic. Her throat tightened as she skimmed the last paragraph. Amara Cole does not merely endure pressure. She transforms it into clarity. Institutions do not shape her. She exposes their limits. She looked up, eyes shining. You didn't have to. He wanted to, he said simply. They walked together across campus one last time. You know, Amara said, for a long time, I thought surviving meant staying quiet. Professor Kang nodded. That is what people who benefit from silence teach us. I won't be quiet anymore, she said. A pause. Good, he replied. At the bus stop, she hesitated. What happens to them? The ones who hurt you? He asked. Yes. They will move on. Some will learn, some won't. That doesn't feel like justice. No, he agreed, but justice is not always loud. Sometimes it's survival with memory. The bus arrived. Amara hugged him before she could stop herself. Thank you, she whispered. He patted her shoulder once. Live well. As the bus pulled away, Amara watched the campus disappear from view. She didn't feel victorious. She felt free. Months later, the lab was cold and humming with energy. Amara stood at a workstation, surrounded by equipment she once thought was out of reach. Her badge hung from her neck, her name printed clearly, without apology. Cole, a colleague called. Your data's impressive. She smiled. Thank you. Some nights were still hard. Some memories still surfaced without warning, but they no longer defined her. One evening, her phone buzzed with a notification. A message request. She hesitated before opening it. Hi, you don't know me, but I'm a first-year student at Westbridge. I heard what you went through. I'm going through something similar. How did you survive? Amara stared at the message for a long time. Then she typed back. You don't survive by disappearing. You survive by staying. Weeks later, she received another message, then another. Stories, questions, gratitude. Amara began volunteering, mentoring, speaking. Her voice steadied with each conversation. Across the country, Professor Kang continued teaching, quietly, watching carefully. One afternoon, a student lingered after class. I don't think I belong here, the student said. Professor Kang looked at them for a moment, then replied, Neither did I. Sit down. Years passed. At a conference filled with polished professionals in sharp suits, Amara stepped onto her own stage. She scanned the audience. Front row, Professor Kang Min Jae. Older now, still calm, still watching. She met his gaze and nodded once before turning to the microphone. I was told once that I didn't belong, but I learned something important. She paused. Belonging isn't granted by cruelty. It's claimed through courage. The applause that followed wasn't hesitant. It was earned. Later, as they stood near the exit, Amara smiled at him. You were right. About what? They didn't know who you really were. Professor Kang chuckled softly. Neither did you. She laughed. Maybe not, but I know who I am now. He nodded, and that was enough. If this story moved you, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Stories like this matter, and your engagement helps more people hear them. Because somewhere, right now, someone is being told they don't belong, and they need to hear this.